you've ever met. I used to say my burning desire, when I used to stand up for my burning desire, was to take my dad to the Cubs World Series. I didn't get a chance to take it to him because it was too expensive, but at least we got to watch it at a bar together. So that's kind of my background. I've been doing this 19 years. My partner, David, who has been here a while, so some of you guys haven't met him, has been doing it 41 years. So that's a great background. He was at a time when every case got tried. So David's been board certified in civil trial law, one of 200 lawyers out of over 100,000 that have been board certified since 1984. So that's a good background that we have. What I go back and forth what I want to talk about. So what I thought I'd do today is go over some important questions that we get asked either by you guys for referrals, or I get asked when I meet with someone. So one of the first questions is, why should they go to an attorney right away? Like, they have an accident. I'm going to talk about mostly in terms of auto accidents because that's probably 75%, 80% of our work. Why go to an attorney right away? A few things. Number one, vehicles since 2005 have what's called an EDR, electronic data recorder, which is like a black box if you think of an airplane. And that records the last 5 seconds before a major event like an impact. So I can pull that data off if the accident makes sense. It's expensive to do. It's about $1,000 to do. But I can pull that data off of the vehicle to find out what happened in the accident. Because someone may say I was going 40 miles an hour, and you pull the data off, you find out they were going 60 miles an hour. Skid marks go away in Florida very quickly. So if it's a bad accident, if you're not out there soon, skid marks will be gone in a few days. And you would think that the officers are going to do an investigation. Officers don't do any investigation of accidents unless there's going to be a death. And really, they won't start the investigation until they learn the person's passed away. Because there was an accident outside our office about a year ago. They had the street closed. They weren't doing any investigation. They were just waiting to see if the person was going to survive, and they were fine, luckily. So they're not going to measure skid marks. They're not going to take pictures. They're not going to do anything at the scene. So you have to do it yourself, or you have to get someone out there soon after an accident. There's other things. I know I talked one time, we had a case where the person pulled out in front of someone, and one of the reasons they pulled out is their car was low, and the neighborhood had let the bushes grow really high, and they couldn't see around it. Well, by the time we got the case, which was only a few days later, they had chopped those bushes down. And so there's evidence issues that come into that. The other question that gets asked is, do I really need a lawyer that handles auto cases? I know a lawyer friend that does real estate, probate, whatever else. We're really specialized anymore. I compare it to going to a doctor. You don't go to a podiatrist to get a cardiac surgery. It's the same thing. It's the same thing in law. I know a guy who's out here that's a general practitioner. A good lawyer. I refer him some stuff for general business practice. But he told me when talking to him, the hardest thing he does when he takes all these cases is he's going against specialists. So he has to try to learn and catch up. And I noticed it Friday. My client was getting deposed by some other attorneys that don't do this area of the law. And I know the attorney. He's kind of like your crazy uncle type attorney. And they made objection after objection that was wrong. And finally, after a while, I felt bad, and I said, I'm not trying to be a jerk. And he kind of laughed and said, you are. But I said, you just don't know this area of law. You can't ask any of these questions about the auto accident. So it's important to go to someone that knows what they're doing. Another question that comes up is, will insurance pay for my medical costs, or what insurance will pay for it? Right now, PIP will pay for it, what's called personal injury protection. You have to use that under the law. So we all have paid for that premium. So if you have Allstate, for example, Allstate's going to pay for your medical expenses. People think it's kind of counterintuitive, because you're thinking, I didn't cause the accident, why is my insurance going to be paying for it? That's the way the Florida law has been set up for 40 years. So you can't use your health insurance until that, and health insurance won't pay until the $10,000 are exhausted. And people say, well, gosh, the insurance company told me, because what ends up happening is PIP pays 80% of a bill. It's a formula, but let's just call it 80% of a bill. So if you go into a chiropractor, it's $200, they're going to pay $160, leaving you a $40 balance. And they say, well, the other insurance company is going to pay for that, right? The reality is they're not going to pay as you go. They're not going to sit there, okay, you have a $40 bill, we'll pay that. You have a $50 bill, we'll pay that. That's just, the insurance company is going to make a one-time payment for the at-fault party. And that's going to be in a settlement. Once they make that payment, they want a release. They want a full release of all claims. So people are told that a lot, and it's just not reality. The other question is, do I really need an attorney? Kind of flows right into that. I think I've told this story before. I did defense work for 10 years, and I thought, for the most part, the insurance company I worked with was pretty fair to people. But what I found is that's not always the case, unfortunately. And I use this example. I had a client come in who was in a horrible accident. In terms of what, if you saw the vehicle, you would have thought the person had died. And in fact, I was telling someone recently, it's probably out of thousands of accidents I've seen, top 15 vehicle damage I've ever seen. She walked away pretty fine. She was a 20-year-old girl. She treated for a little while, for maybe 4 months, stopped treating, and then started treating again like a year later. She didn't have problems, but she just didn't treat. She's a typical 20-year-old, busy with school. Not a very good case, but the insurance company sent her $500. Didn't even cover her out of pocket, the 20% that wasn't paid by PIP. So she came to me, it's not really a great case for me to handle because it's not gonna be much money when you're taking on a contingency basis, but I really wanted to help her. And it turned out, and they said it to her again, and that's why she came to me, and it turned out the insurance company ended up paying many multiples of that once we showed her, and she got her medicals paid, she got a little bit of money in her pocket. But that was an example of, you think they might do the right thing and send her at least enough money to cover it, and they don't do it all the time, or they rarely do it. Another question that gets asked sometimes, not very often because there's so much lawyer advertising anymore, can I afford to hire an attorney? We do almost all personal injury cases are handled on a contingency basis. What that means is a percentage of a recovery. So no one comes out of pocket for anything. We pay all the costs. Why is that important? Because costs can be very expensive. I mean, I have a case right now that's sitting on appeal that I have oral argument in June. We probably spent $75,000 or $80,000 on that case. Now that's a bigger case, and that's not, but a case to go to, a general auto case to go to trial, it's a 4 or 5 day trial, is gonna cost our firm about $15,000 or $20,000. So you don't wanna be having to pay that cost in a case. When I did defense work, it would be different. You'd be paying me by the hour. So consultations are free, and then we're handling it kind of for free until we get paid out of the settlement. What happens if a ticket's against you? That's another case. So there's been a couple times I've seen cases where the ticket went against them. I know I've told the story, and a lot of people weren't in the group at the time. I had a case years ago where a former college roommates called me, and his mom, unfortunately, or his mother-in-law had been killed in an accident down in Fort Myers. In what's called the THI report, traffic homicide investigation report, said the mom was at fault. Well, it was done incorrectly. It was done all wrong. Wasn't given the ticket because obviously she was passed away. But there was an example of the police investigation was wrong. They actually did do an investigation. They just didn't complete the investigation. They took it to step 7 instead of step 10. So even if you get a ticket, it doesn't mean anything. Tickets don't come into evidence. So if you're found at fault for an accident, it's a debate who ran a light. And that's kind of the one where you get into some interesting issues. If you get issued the ticket and you know you weren't at fault, you can fight the ticket. You still have a case against the other driver. Tickets don't ever come into evidence in a civil case. So so I was just talking to someone yesterday, and they can't show up to the traffic hearing, and the ticket's probably going to get dismissed, and she's worried about it. And I said it doesn't matter. I've actually told clients to plead guilty to a ticket knowing they didn't do anything wrong, because I don't want them testifying at the ticket hearing, because then you have now testimony against you, or another piece of testimony. So if you ever have a ticket and you know you weren't at fault and we can show that, don't worry about it. You still have your client or referral would solve the case. Couple other, I know it's getting quick already. What to do after an accident. So just want to tell you guys, if you're talking to friends or you have an accident, I know a few people have called me from accident scenes from this group. Brian's laughing at that. It's fine. No, it's fine. I mean, we talked, and you knew what to do anyway. Take pictures. Take pictures of it, especially if it's a bad accident, pictures of the vehicles, because a lot of pictures don't get taken. Report it, obviously, to the police right away. If you need medical attention, seek medical attention. I mean, be careful on that. If you're not sure you need medical attention, I will tell you the insurance company is going to hold it against you if you don't go to the ER. But my belief is, if you don't need to go to the ER, don't go to the ER, because there goes $5,000 of your $10,000 in medical expenses. Make sure if there's any witnesses at the scene, you get their information. The police are historically poor about getting people's information. So they say, oh, a witness was there, and then they can't find the witness. And I'll tell this quick story. When I say they don't do an investigation, when I did defense work, I had a case where the woman was in a horrible accident in a Dodge Neon SRT, street racing technology. That was what the case was about. And she ended up in a coma for 6 months, came out of the coma, could not speak anymore. Oddly got her cognitive ability back. Couldn't speak and couldn't move. They didn't do any investigation of that accident. So you would have thought someone life-flighted from the scene, there would have been investigation of what happened in that accident. So it made it very hard as defense attorneys to establish what happened in that accident. So, does anyone have any questions? I know that goes for 10 minutes, goes quick, but go ahead, Lisa.
What if you're a witness to an accident? 'Cause I had one recently. I gave a statement to the police officer, and then their insurance followed up asking me questions that were very kind of directional one way, and I refused to answer them.
Yeah, you don't have, I mean, as a witness, it's a good question, because both sides may call you and kind of direct it the way they want it to be. You don't, as a witness, you don't have to, once you've given the statement to the police, you don't have to answer anything to the insurance company or to our side. Of course, we all appreciate it if you do, because we want to know what you're going to have to say. But you may get subpoenaed down the road if there's a case.
Okay.
You're going to get subpoenaed to a deposition, and then you do have to show up for that.
Okay.
So.
Can you help people that are in an accident? Like, as a bystander, as a witness, can you like get people out of cars? Can you?
Yeah. Like if there's Florida has what's called a Good Samaritan statute. So it's not like you move someone and it turned out you shouldn't have moved them.
Yeah.
You would still be protected under the Good Samaritan statute, which is good because it could be that someone would sue you and say you shouldn't have moved me, you shouldn't have done something like that.
You're talking about the expenses that your firm pays into a case
Right.
before it goes. Or if you lose, are you out those expenses, or do those expenses go for whoever you were representing?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're pretty much out the expenses. I mean, the way the contract reads is that we can go back to our client and ask for the expenses back. But the reality is, if they didn't have anything coming in the door, and they don't have anything coming out the door, we're not getting it back. Luckily, that hasn't really happened. I mean, the one case I was telling you about, the bigger expense case, I mean, we haven't been paid on it because it's on appeal. And who knows how it'll end up on appeal. So we got 2 separate appeals coming.
For anybody that's watching this, is there a geographical area that you handle only or anything like that? Or is it in the entire state?
Yeah, that's a good question too. If it makes sense, we'll handle it throughout the entire state. Obviously, like any attorney, we're licensed throughout Florida. Brian's an attorney, the one that asked the question. I've handled cases in Miami, I've handled cases in Jacksonville, I've handled cases in the Panhandle. It's got to make sense for everyone involved for us to handle it, but I'm happy to do that. Because I still have clients that are in Sarasota, or former clients that are in Sarasota, Miami, Jacksonville, things like that. Any other questions, Julie?
Do you actually call people back, or they send you an email or a message? You actually return a phone call?
I try to, but unfortunately, I think you have an experience with an attorney, so you know. The most bar complaints against attorneys are failure to communicate, and it's historically attorneys are really bad about that. I think I'm pretty good. Anyone that's worked with me will probably see that, or have had referrals work with me. I'm always on my email. I'm responding at night sometimes. I'm returning calls as much as I can. And of course, if we're in trial for a week or something like that, my office will let them know I'm in trial, and I probably won't get back to you because I'm focused on that case. But it's very, very rare I don't get back to someone in a day or 2.
He called me back while he was on a ski vacation. And he took the time to call me back, so yeah, he called, yeah.
Awesome, that's huge.
Go ahead.
Obviously, you guys know that Jim and I work together a little bit, but one thing is from a doctor's standpoint, sometimes we have questions like, are you okay with sending a person here or sending a person there? And that's one thing that's very, very big, is that I have other attorneys that take months to get back to me about stuff, and so I gotta do it the way that I wanna do it, so. But it helps ease the patient's mind when they can hear back from Jim, or when they ask Jim a question and they hear the same answer from me. And so that's really, really big. And then as far as like signing up, do you sign up quickly, or do you wait to see if you have injuries and things like that? It's always good to talk to Jim first, maybe you can touch on it. A lot of the insurance companies now are having you sign paperwork like literally the day after, and most people it's not a good situation afterwards. We had one person, basically the insurance agent met him at an IHOP over near the university area, signed the paperwork, got $500, and it was pretty bad injuries later on, and there's not anything you can do about it.
It's a good point. There are certain insurance companies that are very aggressive. They'll go meet you at where you're getting your vehicle fixed because they're paying to help get your vehicle fixed, and they'll throw $1,000 or $2,000 and thinking, and the first week you really don't know what your injury is. And as a doctor can tell you. I mean, I have a client that came in and he didn't really know how much of an injury he had. He ended up having 2 surgeries. He felt okay the first week, not horrible bad, but not as bad as he thought he would end up getting. So, any other questions? Go ahead.
You were talking about automobile personal. Do you do commercial auto accidents also?
Yeah, yeah.
Commercial vehicles involved?
Right.
For companies?
Yeah, definitely. And when I did defense work, that's all I did. Because I worked for Zurich Insurance Company, and they're a commercial carrier. They're second biggest in the world. So that's all we did was handle those type of cases. And there's differences between an auto case and a trucking case or a box truck or something like that. So we're well versed in that area. In fact, I don't know if anyone remembers 2008, there was that 70-car pileup on I-4. I had one of the clients in that case, unfortunately. So we were really involved in that case. It was an interesting case. Any other questions? Okay, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.